Welcome to the Earth Your Wild podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet?
Today we're joined by Andy Cameron, founder of Bamboo Bobby, the eco-friendly bamboo toilet roll brand. Welcome
Hello.
to the... Hi Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah, good.
Good, yeah.
Good.
So, toilet paper. That's where we thought we should start.
It's actually it's a really good one because hopefully this is universal to all of our listeners. Hopefully they're all using toilet paper.
Hopefully, you'd hope so, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
So
I mean, there are other methods do exist,
Yeah.
but and quite environmentally friendly methods as well used in different parts of the world. But we'll focus on the toilet paper for now.
Japanese listeners might not have too much interest in this episode. But yeah.
So, how bad is traditional paper, toilet paper, for the environment, and how much better is bamboo toilet paper?
Okay, so most of the toilet paper we get in the UK comes from Scandinavian forests, and the majority of it is from hardwood trees, and obviously they take quite a lot of space and quite a lot of time to grow. They need a lot of inputs, so you need a lot of water and fertilizer to make these trees grow. Typically, they're about 25 years before they will reach maturity. I think all these trees need to stay in the ground. We need to keep planting more, not cutting them down. Wood is a sustainable material if used in things like furniture and things that actually keep the carbon stored. So it's great from a building material point of view. Because all the capture that's happened over the years remains embedded in the product. But so as long as anything that's disposable to an extent, even bamboo toilet paper has an environmental impact. We should all try not to, as you guys do, we should try not to use disposable products where possible. Obviously with toilet paper, it's a little bit difficult. So it's about producing the kind of least environmentally damaging product possible. Now, bamboo, obviously it grows in the sort of giant bamboo that's used grows in a specific part of China. So one of the arguments people say, well, it can't be environmentally friendly. It's coming from China versus wood coming from here. So I'll just tackle that bit very quickly. So the way that most Scandinavian wood is cut down and felled, it is then taken to a processing plant, then a pulping plant, and then a processing plant. It then travels by diesel truck across Europe and across to us here. So it has a shorter traveling distance, correct? Okay. However, sea freight is 60 times less impactful than diesel freight. So our product is roughly the same in terms of transport emissions coming from China because it's produced very close to the Yangtze River in a plantation which is right next to the pulping and processing facility. So it only travels very short distance, around about 40 kilometers in that time, before it then ends up back on a barge going down the river and out to sea freight. So our transport emissions are roughly the same. So if you consider that part of the scope to be equal, then it really comes down to the production and harvesting of the product. So bamboo over trees is fantastic because it's a grass. So it grows in one spot and it grows very, very quickly. So as I mentioned before, 25 years to grow a tree, about 3 years to get bamboo to a harvesting level. Okay, so a considerably quicker time frame. And also once you cut it off, it just grows in the same spot. So you don't have this problem of having to clear vast areas of land which have developed into habitats. They have biodiversity around them, and wait for a long time before clearing that properly so you can plant trees again. Bamboo is just growing in the same spot continuously. So Like there's a much greater yield without having to expand into different areas. So my basic argument behind this is we should all use as much recycled for recycled is the best possible product for the environment. UK made recycled because of traveling distance and because essentially that material has already been made. It does, however, have negative sides to it in terms of quality and also the amount of chemical inputs you have to put into something to recycle it. And also, we just don't have enough recycled pulp to satisfy the whole market. So my argument is we should really look at it as twofold. Budget stuff and the economy stuff should be recycled paper, toilet paper, and those customers that want a really nice quality premium product should use bamboo. Because it's softer, it's higher quality, it's stronger, and it's still very sustainable. So that kind of explains the kind of why it's better. Bamboo also sequesters more carbon per hectare than trees, and it doesn't require any additional chemical inputs. So you don't need to add fertilizer, don't need to add water. It just grows. It's a very, very robust plant. So that's the benefits of using bamboo over traditional wood-based products. But I want to be clear that recycled is still very good, but it does contain quite a lot of chemicals, which particularly people with sensitive skin can struggle with a little bit. So that's the approach I'd take to the market: recycled and bamboo going alongside each other. So don't feel like you're doing the wrong thing if you're buying recycled or bamboo. Both are great.
Yeah. So is it so you don't have to use the chemicals in bamboo toilet paper, is that, or you use less?
No, all paper requires pulping stage a certain amount of chemical. It's less so in bamboo, far less so, because it's a stronger natural fiber. So there's less solvents and binding agents and things needed. In fact, none, as far as I know. You require more of that in a virgin wood product, and we don't bleach the product with additional whiteness or anything in the processing stage. So it's a kind of natural bamboo color.
I think it's an interesting point, actually, because I don't know whether this is just me, whether I'm just stupid, but it was only like a couple of years ago I realized that obviously all the toilet roll is bleached for, I guess, just for cosmetic, for appearance, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's mad, all kinds of colors, and you can buy fancy kitchen rolls that are pink or blue, or hand towels that are blue or green. Those things you used to get in the toilet at school, they're always green, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty rank. I don't know why you need that.
But it's just, I was just recently I realized actually they're bleaching it because apparently it looks slightly nicer, but it's obviously such a waste of resources, as well as, like you said, the chemicals involved and I guess the pollution that it creates.
Well, that's it. And we're a very stripped down product, so everything about it is recycled paper packaging or no paper packaging around it, just in a box, the outer box. And we use a bamboo core, and we use cornstarch inks on all the packaging and stuff. So we strip it back to the basics. I won't mention names, but there are some other lovely companies in this space that do good things. They give away some of their profits. I mean, it's very different from what we do. We give away everything. We're all volunteers, and so I have a separate business which basically our staff wanted to volunteer towards something positive, and we were doing little things like litter picking and conservation projects, but people wanted to get behind something that we were doing together. So we had Bamboo Bobby as a brand, and we set up a community interest group, and we put that into the community interest group with the idea of us all volunteering towards that and using some of our work time and expertise, because we thought, well, why have a very qualified managing director and a great marketing team that are out picking up litter, which obviously is really important, but let's use their expertise to do something fantastic in this space that will really, really make a difference. Rather than, a job you could pay someone minimum wage to do, so it makes sense to use the assets we've got to try and do something quite significant here. So we all donate our time. The warehousing here is all donated at the moment. So everything, there's no costs apart from sending it out to customers. And we at the moment are supporting it with cash flow as well. There will come a point that won't be possible, but so yeah, it's a business free of costs, run by volunteers, that uses everything we make to give away. So that's obviously how it has an additional environmental and social benefit. So the food banks were using like the cheapest possible virgin wood product, because obviously they've got to buy whatever they can, and we've replaced that from their usage, and someone's buying a good product as well. So it's kind of like a double effect of every purchase, and obviously they get to save more money that they can put into buying other essentials for those people that are struggling, and there's a lot of people struggling. It's staggering the numbers.
So is it buy one give one free? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, well, we do distribute through some wholesalers as well, where the profit margins are quite a bit smaller, but obviously that gives us presence, and we can't expect all of those people to give away all their profits as well, because their business is not set up in the same way as we are, but everything we make, every single penny goes to buying. So if you buy online, it's 100% 1-for-1. Other ways of buying, we generally can still do 1-for-1, because we give away a UK recycled product rather than the bamboo bobby, which is a little bit more expensive, to the food banks.
Okay, I think just going back a step, I think there's something that's really interesting. So so most of our audience, it's people either working or running businesses, and they're trying to work out, or we're trying to educate people, environmental impact, like what actually has a big impact and what can you do about it if you care, as a person or as a company. And I thought the really interesting thing you said there was that as a team, as a company, in your other business, people were, wanting to do impact projects with you, whether that was, like you said, volunteering or litter picking or something, and then you decided to get them, the marketing professional to do marketing for a product that can have an impact, and the sales professional to do. I just thought that's actually a really interesting thing. I've not actually heard.
No,
obviously it's very simple and genius, but I'm just thinking, like, the amount of people listening that I know, because they reach out to us on a regular basis, and they're saying, as a company, we want to try and do something for the environment, for the planet, or for society.
I guess you know exactly where your money and your expertise is go. So there's always the worry, isn't there, that if we donate to charity, where does that money actually go? Whereas when you do it yourself, you know exactly what's going on. So
I just wanted to highlight it, because I feel like for people listening, that's actually a really, I don't know, it was like a little light bulb moment. Actually, it's a really smart way of doing this.
How do you kind of make sure that your staff don't spend all their time on bamboo bobby, or how does it not get out of control? Because what if someone gets really enthusiastic and
it's tricky at times, because people love doing it, because it's it's such a feel good factor to what we're doing, but we've got a great MD here who keeps everyone on task. I think if ultimately we need the other business to be a success so that we can do this, and everyone's really aware of that. And so we make people really aware that we do these things because we're a sort of business that wants to show we care. But we also want to give people the kind of opportunities that they want to get involved in. And so it's just a real win-win for everyone. It's I'd just like to go back to the point you both just made there, that if that is the light bulb moment for businesses, can you foster some sort of entrepreneurial spirit within the business to look at some kind of social enterprise, however small, because I can tell you your staff will love it. That they're actually continuously contributing towards something positive. It's such an added benefit to one, recruiting people, because when we tell people about it, because we're growing quite fast, what we're doing, they're like, I love that. Because if they were just, our other business does like commercial bathroom products. We also have a business that does cycling clothing called Polaris, which were just kind of, it's an old brand that we're reintroducing to the market. But the thing that always gets everyone when they're coming through the door is like, I love that you do that, and yeah, I'd love to be part of that. And so I think we've managed to get 3 really good level hires recently, and I think Bamboo Bobby sold it to them. You know, the fact that they like that idea, and then it really fits with our culture and the type of person we want in the business as well. So it's a great way of fostering the culture, and it's a great way of, having variety, and getting people thinking a little bit differently every now and again. That's really positive all round for the other kind of work. Without, and if you've got good leaders, and it's not me, the MD, by the way, I'm too all over the place, but he manages things really, really well. And so it's such a positive force for us. So yeah, all kinds of companies can do this. I mean, as I say, it doesn't make sense to go and do something that you can't really often see the benefit from. Like offsetting is a classic one. How much we measure our carbon footprint down to the third scope, and then we still pay someone to do like verified offsetting projects so we can get the nice carbon balance badge and everything. And we do that properly, but you're still like, you see all these reports. Does it really go where it should? You're not sure. We use a pretty reputable kind of measuring agency, but it's still, just don't see it, do you? As you say, it's not tangible.
I think it kind of loses a bit of meaning as well. I kind of think that I think I imagine like the concern people might have that are running businesses that want to try and do something to reduce their impact, and they're thinking, oh, should we have a budget? Should we do some offsetting? Should we do some tree planting? As good as all those things are, you do it and you forget about it. Whereas with what you're talking about, it's you're sort of giving people more purpose. I wonder whether it might, like you said, actually has a positive impact on your normal business, because people are kind of more, motivated. They're more passionate about their job in general.
Well, I think so. I think they say that particularly, like, I always get my generations mixed up. They say particularly the younger generation are like used to moving around jobs quicker if they're not getting everything they need, which is great in a way because it forces businesses to give people what they need, and it's not just a job for life because you think, oh, I better not because I might not get another one. It's that kind of fluid market where people are actually going to good companies, is a really positive thing in my opinion. And yeah, I think that kind of added element really, really helps, particularly the younger generation who want to do something purposeful. Haven't given up just yet.
Yeah, well, we do similar things, but one thing is like we give everybody X amount of days paid leave each year to just volunteer at different social environmental charities. And I definitely don't think it has any negative impact on productivity, because people just seem to squash the work into a smaller time frame. But I think it kind of teaches us that we don't, like, even when we run a business, obviously making a profit is probably the most important objective each day, because if you don't make a profit, you don't have a business. But I think it teaches us that sometimes we don't need to make money out of everything. Sometimes there's a value in doing something for benefit for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the real problem with the environment, and it's become such a marketing tool now to kind of win business, and there's so much BS, for want of a better word, as a result. We see it hugely in our industry, people peddling all kinds of untruths and things, and that was one of the reasons again why we wanted to become a not-for-profit, because we were like, I just don't want to be involved in any of this. I just want this to be about the planet, and that's it, and social goals, because as soon as you have profit in there, and some Procter and Gamble or some big company comes along as interested in your little toilet roll brand, suddenly everyone gets a bit more excited about just growing sales at all costs. And there's a number of companies in our space that all they talk about is market values and things like that, and you're just like, are you really doing this for the right reasons? It started off that way, and I don't think there is nothing wrong with running businesses for a profit. As you say, you have to do it. We do it in another area, But if you profess that your kind of sole purpose and aim is to save the planet, I'm not sure that the profit incentive works. I think you have to look at it a little bit differently. I think you just have to be really careful about what you're saying. I think it's okay to be an ethical company that makes profit and is doing as much good as it can, but don't try and profess that you're single-handedly saving the planet through consumerism, because you're not. And it's people have just got to be a bit more real with what they are and what they aren't, and I think eventually people will start to see through that. But some companies do some really, really good jobs of convincing you that they're whiter than white, and it's like, I know the detail behind this, and so it's so hard for consumers, really is.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we kind of created this podcast, actually, is to try and help people cut through the bullshit and find out actually what is the impact, what is the good solutions, what can we do. But I think that probably the most important takeaway from this episode is actually sometimes you actually, if you've got people of skill in your organization, how can you use that skill to create a product or service for free, which can have an impact.
Absolutely. And the 1% for the planet movement, I don't know if you know about that, is a bit, which we're a member of, is a bit like that, because it's people sharing skills and their time as well as their donations to do positive things. So Bamboo Bobby is also a 1% for the planet. So it's called It's Just Household Essentials CIC. And Bamboo Bobby is a brand that sits within it, and that is a 1% for the planet environmental partner as well. So if businesses are also a member of 1% for the planet, by buying our toilet paper, it's actually seen as a contribution. So you can use that as part of your contribution. So it's a win-win. You get a product and you're making a contribution.
Nice. Yeah. So where did you get the idea for Bamboo Bobby, and where did it come from?
Well, originally, it was I wanted to try and make I saw what was happening sort of with bamboo brands coming out. I thought that's really good, stops trees being cut down. And we've got a separate business that does electric hand dryers, actually. So that the paper market always attacks electric hand dryers because we stop their revenue. So I did a lot of research into like the impact of paper and kind of really had quite a good understanding of that. And so I wanted to sell a product that was better than, a product that people wouldn't ultimately stop using. It's not with hand towels, you can use a hand dryer, which is much better for the environment. But with toilet rolls, you just need a better option, don't you, if you're not going to use a bidet type thing. So yeah, that was where it kind of came from. I wanted to have a good solution, but I wanted to make it really, really affordable, so that more people could buy it. But what we realized is you couldn't make bamboo as affordable as cheap toilet paper. So you were never going to get that budget market. So I just thought it's really weird the way that it was kind of this limited number of middle class kind of ethical consumers that bought these products that were good for the planet. And it's like, surely we've got to make these products that are good for the planet more ubiquitous so that more people can do good for the planet. But there's normally a premium charged on them. And so again, it's that marketing thing a lot of the time of, I'll make my product green and I can charge more for it and I can make more money. Bamboo is actually more expensive to produce a little bit. A lot of shipping costs because of where it comes from at the moment, just because it's a low value product. So there wasn't quite the profit in it to make it that kind of really, really low cost product that we wanted to. So that's where, again, the idea went, well, why don't we just give away all the profits, and then we can give it to the people who are in that lower income bracket, because they're not going to buy it for themselves, or we can give an ethical product to them because they're not going to buy the more expensive product themselves. So we can double the impact and get it into more people that wouldn't choose ethical over cost before. So I'm kind of losing track of what the original question was, but the motivation behind it, and also the cartoon monkey you see on the front, if you can see that, is based on my son. So my son was we had a picture of him, and we've got an artist that's in my other children's class, so they turned him into a bamboo monkey, which I thought would be good for his story for his wedding. If it became a well-known toilet roll brand, he was the face of it. But it was sort of, sounds a bit cheesy, but it was about reminding you that actually it's about the future, and by making it my actual son that I look at all the time, it reminds you that you try and do something positive for the future as much as anything. So that's how Bamboo Bobby was kind of born. As I say, it originally started as a profit-making business, but then we just switched it because that was a way that we could all focus our attention.
That's really that kind of sticks, doesn't it? When you think about that, when you want to do like something as a consumer, you think, right, I want to buy the best product that's going to help the planet and do the right thing. And then when you actually realize, oh, this is making people a lot of money due to this, how do you get around that? How do you spend your money in the best way as a consumer?
It's really difficult to kind of think about a world where we don't spend as much, because obviously it creates jobs, and
it's how society works. I think the way you framed it, as corny as it does sound, that it's because it's based on your son, and that reminds you about trying to create a better future for him environmentally. I think that's actually does help you get around it as a brand, as a marketing exercise, for sure. Because everyone else is just selling toilet roll.
No, I love.
I mean, there are some really good brands out there, but again, like it's about marketing, not about the real cause. I mean, there's one that does beautiful packaging on everything, and it looks really, really cool. And I even have to say, even to my own wife, she's like, "I love that stuff. It looks great."
It's annoying, isn't it?
It looks, and she's only joking, of course, but it does look really good, but it's individually packaged rolls that are all printed, and you think, well, that's just certainly not good for the environment. Doing that, but it's all part of this nice sort of fresh marketing exercise that looks great, and it's all very visual, and people buy into that stuff. And I think that's a really, really good example of how we operate in this world and how we need to get away from that sort of the shiny marketing convince people of everything, but we need to look beyond that. I like the idea that there's just a lot more regulation around products, some kind of standardized carbon accounting, that everyone has to subscribe to the same carbon accounting. Every product has to have it on, and people know actually what they're buying, and there isn't any ambiguity around it. At the moment, there's so many people doing different types of carbon accounting in slightly different ways, measuring things differently, that there is no true figure, and it's a minefield for consumers. So the basic cornerstone of trying to be sustainable as a consumer is don't buy too much you don't need. Like your business, reuse a box. What a great thing. My business uses it now because it's intuitive that that's a good thing. You're not having to make fancy marketing around that, because ultimately everyone knows that every time you produce a box, you're creating quite a lot of emissions and environmental damage. But if you reuse a box, you're not, and that's the same with products. We just have to make stuff that lasts. We have to buy quality, and we have to not just buy things we don't need. Spend that money on going out with your mates. Enjoying yourself. Get a guitar. Do something that actually enriches your life, rather than just buying stuff all the time. And that's what I hope for kind of the economy in future, that we can shift to more of a like experiential based, that isn't carbon emitting, rather than a stuff based one, which I don't think makes anyone happy, really. I think it's been proven as well, hasn't it? It's just we're stuck in that. We must produce more, we must buy more, to keep the economy growing. And I think we can grow it without having to do that, and just, borrow each other's stuff so we don't have to buy so much things. Reuse the lawnmower. Why have 100 lawnmowers on the street? Just have one that you all use, and stuff like the car sharing model and all this stuff. I mean, no one in government or business would ever say that's great, because they're thinking, well, I need to sell people cars that sit on their drive for 99% of the time, you know, because that's great for business. But it's ultimately just a terrible thing for the environment. I just think we could live with a lot less and be happier. And yeah, we somehow need to change that paradigm.
Yeah, well, it's these kind of success metrics, like you said, focusing on like GDP for your economy, for example, probably not as relevant now as it was 100 years ago.
I mean, yeah, we all need money to live, but I just think there's this constant growth. There's we can have growth in other areas that aren't so damaging.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on or get your perspective on, being an avid buyer of bamboo toilet rolls that we use a box, we did notice in the news, was it some point this year, there was some, I don't know if we can call it a scandal, but I'm gonna go for it. There was some kind of scandal around a certain other brand, not yours, a different brand, that was supplying bamboo toilet rolls, and then allegedly some third party had tested it, and it was allegedly mainly paper based or something.
Yeah.
I just wondered what's your perspective on that, and how do you kind of avoid that? I don't know, because obviously
I think in fairness to that company, they probably fell foul of, because I know their production chain and how it works, and they're not as transparent as they could be about certain things. But that is they wouldn't have procured the pulp, I don't think, for that product. That would have come through a processing plant. And I think, knowing the processing plant they use, which is an ethical one, they would have not knowingly bought pulp that wasn't correct. So I think they've been unlucky and got caught out. And what they'll have to do is the TAPI tests, which we now do as a result on every batch, which is to check the content of the product is exactly as you think it was. But I think some of these companies, just in that case, I think have fallen foul. That actual company, though, has taken some of our marketing when we were being talked about on This Morning. They actually chopped up all the sound bites about our products and pretended it was theirs. This is one of the reasons why we became a not-for-profit. And they produce a lot of life cycle information, but they miss out really key bits of it. Again, so these are the kind of things, and the kind of some of the practices in this space, which again made us want to make this change. So we were almost like, well, if anything does accidentally go wrong in our supply chain, or anything isn't exactly as we thought it was, look, we're giving away everything to food banks. I'm not trying to make myself wealthy out of it. I'm not trying to, this isn't a deliberate mistake, or this isn't cost cutting or anything like that. This is just a genuine mistake. And it happened. So, I'll kind of let them off that happened once, because I imagine now they won't fall foul of that again. And it's good that people like Which exist to do those random things. Yeah, it's important, and we need more of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
it goes back to that legislation thing you were talking about, really. Obviously, legislation's so far behind where it needs to be when it comes to impact claims, obviously. In fact, I don't think any legislation really exists.
I don't really see how they'll, unless we make an industry out of it.
That would be sensible, right? I mean, if you want to make money, make an industry out of
well, this is again going back to that point, isn't it? It's like, well, why are we following the same old model? Britain has had a great opportunity to go, look, we're the head of the world for environmental sustainable startups or something like that. At the moment, we're kind of falling behind from Brexit and from everything else, and we've had low productivity and all these things, and yet we're not encouraging the kind of things that are cutting edge and green technologies. We should be encouraging every startup into this country. That's where things like your tax breaks should be happening. Tax breaks there, and for low carbon travel like trains and things like that. But no, we we make train travel so expensive and air freight cheap, and don't particularly do anything positive for these kind of areas, which you're like, this is a golden opportunity to stand out and re-establish yourselves as something. And nobody seems to be taking the lead with that much. There isn't one country that stands out that you go, they're not offering huge tax breaks to eco startups or anything. Everyone just seems to be a bit too business as usual. And I don't really get it. I think there's a big opportunity there. Like you say, then you create an industry, you create new jobs, you create new sources of wealth, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, and hopefully that kind of purpose problem, you kind of address that a bit as well, because I think there's be a bit of a crisis of that these days.
So just going back a little bit, so where is Bamboo Bobby manufactured? So, and how do you ensure that's like an ethical supply chain? Because we've kind of touched on that a little bit there, but
so I sort of touched on it. But so, I mean, the starting point is using an FSC chain of custody. So FSC monitor the actual forestry and like plantations of bamboo. So that tells you that you don't have a mix. We've got 100% FSC approved bamboo. So that's the starting point. And then that chain of custody follows through to the processing facility and to our final product, so it can be seen throughout the supply chain. So first of all, that's knowing it's in a well-managed, ethical location. The second part was from we do an audit on the factory. So we do a social and environmental audit on the factory, and to ensure that required standards are there, and then we try and work on improving them. China is an interesting one because they still have certain working practices that in our audits, I've never seen a factory that doesn't fail on overtime, like because they, but that's based on our 37.5 hour overtime. So factories always, and we're always talking to them about, but there's about overtime, but there's an availability of labor issue they've got there. So, and people want the overtime, so they end up doing 45, sometimes 50-hour weeks in most factories. And it's I've never, whatever product we're looking at from China, I've never seen that actually passed. So you're always talking to them, but it's almost a cultural thing that we're imposing about how many hours. But we ensure that the good scores on the social and environmental audit. We, from a main point of view, it was making sure that the plantation and the processing facilities were close to to each other, because if you involve lots of road travel between those different locations, which is often the case, Scandinavian wood often travels to Germany or France, and then it's produced there. So you're obviously big trucks full of logs and then big trucks full of pulp, moving about big locations. Then that's a huge input for paper, and paper is a very, very energy intensive. Pulping and processing is hugely energy intensive. So you can't get away from the fact that we need to use less paper in every way possible, and you can't get around that. Now, let's say there's one company that actually uses what they so-called 100% renewable energy, and that has to travel from China, the pulp, to Spain, and then to the UK. The actual emissions of going to China and then to the UK make the processing plant that they use no less emitting than just producing the whole product in China. So there's loads of nuances to kind of carbon footprint. China isn't perfect. It's a long way from it, but it's getting a lot better. It's actually investing in its green technologies and moving in the right way a lot quicker than most countries, because the negative side of China is obviously, people think of the regime, but they get things done very quickly. So when they've decided to make a transition towards green energy, it's happening a lot quicker than it is other places where there's a lot more kind of committee based stuff about it, and there's a lot more I guess nuances in government. So what we're seeing at the moment is a really quick acceleration towards green energy in China. Ideally, you would bring the pulp to the UK, producing it here. And we have looked at that, but there's very few prepared to produce it at the moment. Presumably their equipment isn't quite right, or it's not just the volumes that they want. So that's the ideal scenario, because you can't get around the fact that the bamboo we need comes from that part of China, and it won't grow anywhere else. It's the climatic conditions there that you don't have to have the chemicals or the water inputs. You'd have to have big greenhouses here and create kind of like this the right environment for it, which would kind of defeat the purpose, the amount of inputs required to do that. So we do think about all these things, but we're very aware nothing's perfect, and we're quite open about that. And again, the one-for-one giving model is really about making this the best thing we possibly can. Yeah, and we're completely transparent. We're always talking to the factory about, can you invest in more green energy, and it's a slow process, but we're getting there. Gradually, people are starting to get the message, and China is getting the message about this sort of stuff. But yeah, we are still looking at UK production of the pulp. But again, the production here isn't great. There's a few that procure green energy, but to me, that's a bit of I mean, it's good, but there's a finite amount of green energy. So it's just like paying a premium. You're not actually making something or generating it yourself. That green energy is just in the grid anyway, and you're the ones that go, I'll pay a bit extra to get the badge, sort of thing. Ultimately, you're not benefiting society as a whole, although you are creating a bit more demand for it. So yeah, people prepared to pay a little bit more for green energy is a good thing. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's not the sort of solution. Like, big manufacturing facilities need to invest in it themselves.
So what is the future for Bamboo Bobby then? The next sort of 5-10 years? What's your...
Well, we're starting to get some real traction with it now, because we don't spend a lot on marketing, because we don't have the money to do it. So it's been a lot of word of mouth, doing like little festivals and little local events and things. But sales are starting to sort of really take off. So we're going to need some, I guess, like charitable or benevolent investment at some point, because we won't be able to keep completely financing it ourselves. We take quite a big cash flow hit to be able to make no money, basically. So we have to use provide the finance. So at some point we'll need to get some outside investment to keep growing it, and there will come a point when our staff, there isn't enough hours in the day for them to do what we need to do. My dream for it is to create a viable alternative to the real big boys, in terms of creating a whole suite of ethical household essential products, that we can do this one-for-one giving model. Therefore, the middle class ethical customer, or the conscious customer who can afford it, is able to double their benefit with everything they buy into the poorer parts of society. And as a result, they're able to get a little bit of breathing space, and a little bit of extra stuff that they need via the food banks. But I also hope, that people don't have to go to food banks as much as they do now. I mean, it's a phenomenon of the last 15 years of government, the huge amount of increase in food banks. There were hardly any 15 years ago. That's ridiculous. How many people are accessing it. So we're just becoming a more unequal country, and Bamboo Bobby, in a small way, tries to address that. And hopefully we'll address that with more and more products, and more people will buy into what we're doing, and maybe hopefully some rich philanthropists or something will start to go, yeah, I like that. That's a good way of turning my money into something more, and I'm happy to help fund that, because it's returning a really, really positive benefit. So hopefully someone's watching, that wants to put their cash in and become part of this movement. We welcome, if people wanted to join a board or get involved. We're not precious about this. We just want it to become something meaningful and have the maximum impact possible. So who knows over the next 10 years? It's quite exciting because the model is really interesting. Like putting environmental and social goals, but having the ethos of a profitable brand, having the kind of expertise and desire to make something a success, which you don't often get in that sector in the same way because it's not how people have been brought up. But to take a business world and to turn it into something positive, I think is there's something really exciting about that more and more people could tap into.
Yeah, sounds very exciting.
We have a final question as well. Did you want to ask it?
Yeah. So you might have touched a little bit on this, but taking a wider perspective, where do you see the world in 10 years, or where do you hope the world will be?
So we've touched on Bamboo Bobby, but the rest of the world.
I mean, I guess I'd like to see our leaders being a bit more focused on like the things we've talked about. How happy are its citizens? How much time are people getting to spend with each other, their families, and how much time are people managing to focus on the important things and like improving the environment. And I really hope actually that AI and automation and robotics, I hope they don't just make this into some kind of weird dystopian kind of future of everyone kind of not having jobs and us not knowing what to do with ourselves and becoming feckless. And I'm hoping that actually we sort of join forces and there's like great accelerations in science and to solve the problems that we've got ahead of us, because it's possible that combining kind of human intelligence and the things we need to achieve with a lot of this just infinitely unbelievable technology that's about to hit us really could produce some amazing results in terms of energy supply, in terms of green travel, and we can all just focus on, like you say, an economy based on experience and enjoyment, and just people having better lives. And it's not worrying about minimum wage jobs because robots are doing that, and we're focusing on something a little bit higher, and a little bit more enjoyable. So yeah, that's our hope. I mean, given today's news, I'm not that hopeful. But you've got to hope, haven't you? But yeah, this kind of based on greed and just individualism, like everybody, this is getting a bit deep, but I think everybody knows when they get to the deathbed, it's not what you'll ultimately look back on and go, yeah, I'm glad I got that rich and screwed a load of people. I think most people go happy when they're like, I did everything I could. I contributed to society. I worked hard. I had fun. And yeah, we stick too many people in jobs they don't enjoy, and for not enough money, and cause too much damage to the environment. I'd just like to see all that change.
Nice. I don't think there's a single listener that would disagree with any of that. So,
well, yeah, never know. Well, yeah.
I don't think there's anyone sat there going, "No, I want to make more money and have less of a fun time."
Our politicians need to make more practical decisions that aren't based in political idealism that help people more, rather than this constant swing from the right and the left. And both have their downsides, but there's just a common sense in between, isn't there? Like what is actually good for us as a whole. And I don't understand why these people don't emerge. They always seems to be one or the other, and we're going more one way or the other at the moment. It's just, yeah, strange world.
Well, we'll play this back in 10 years. see how we got on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today, Andy. It was great to meet you and really great to hear about Bamboo Bobby as well. So
yeah, nice to speak to you both.
before we finish, do you want to let anybody know where they can get Bamboo Bobby?
Yeah, so
listeners?
We have quite a lot of local stores. So anyway, just pop into your kind of local ethical store because they're great places to support, even if they don't have Bamboo Bobby in at the moment. Maybe mention to them, why don't you stock Bamboo Bobby if you stock this? But we have www.bamboobobby.com, which is where you can buy direct, and we'll ship out next day to you. So it's available in 48 boxes, 24s. Is how we like to send it, because it's sending small things through the post isn't the most affordable or environmentally beneficial thing. So 24 boxes don't have any wrapping, so they're a good way if you've got storage.
Well, it's not like everyone's going to need them at some point, aren't they? So,
well, they are, yeah. It's toilet rolls are a very strange thing we saw during the pandemic, but also like we've been at a few festivals, and there's people just say the toilet roll all gets nicked straight away. Like as soon as you put it out, it gets nicked because everyone thinks it's going to run out, and it's like it's the worst in humanity. Toilet roll. People are like, but what if I can't wipe? I'm gonna say, everyone, that's their main concern. It was during the pandemic.
So
yeah, get a subscription model, then you'll never have to worry.
And
you get a slight saving.
Thanks for joining us today. It's been really, really good chat.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly worth your while. For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/worthyourwhile.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.